Oh my goodness, this has been chaos. It's been chaos in the last 10 minutes. The wind just knocked my power out right at the pinnacle of Tim from Canton's call. Absolutely ridiculous. I pay a lot of money for this power, as a matter of fact. A lot of money for this power to stay true. I must say the recovery time is pretty good, but it's still, the last two bills that we've had have been close to $1,000. Someday I want to move to a state where the energy bills make sense and take people's need to live and breathe and barely survive, taking that into account. So I'll move down to Connecticut, where everything is going fine with the power companies. Right, State Senator Rob Sampson?
How are you, Tom? Yeah, no, that's a far cry from the truth, I guess you would say.
Well, it's amazing just the stories you hear, and there is no relief. There's no relief. There's no nothing. What about the rainy day fund? And there's no fix? Like, how many things, I heard Ryan Fazio, how many things are going into this part of the bill, the public energy part of the bill, that we don't know about?
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's a laundry list of items. I mean, we hear about the governor's what is that the term when he allowed people to go for 4 years without paying their the moratorium. Yeah, 4 years without paying the bill, and then there's a millstone piece. But you got salaries for the Green Bank, and you have all of the green energy programs around the state are all paid for out of that. It doesn't belong on electric bills. I mean, we've been through this a number of times. The big issue is that there's complete inaction on the part of the majority. Republicans have been holding press conferences and talking about this issue for at least 2 years now. I think we've done 4 or 5 actual press conferences. I joined some folks who have a guy named Scott Pearson, I think it is, who's got a change.org petition with about 75,000 people. He came up to the Capitol, and we had a little press conference, and we wheeled over all the petitions over to the governor's office, and the governor wouldn't come out. I mean, it's just, this is their complete and utter disdain for people concerned about their electric bills. We had a rally at the state capitol in the fall, and, it wasn't well attended, but, it was one of those things that was kind of last minute and so forth. And the Democrat leadership of the Senate, they mocked those people. I mean,
amazing.
It really is. And yet they brought us in twice now. Tom, I talked to you about the last time, but then the governor vetoed these bills, and they brought us in again this Wednesday, which is coincidentally why I missed you on Wednesday. I apologize. I was on the floor speaking throughout. I missed your entire show because I spoke through the whole thing, challenging the Democrats on why they want to give money to organizations that promote illegal immigration and gender assignment surgery and gender affirming care. Abortion, things like that. That's their focus. They want to, shake their fist at the president and show how much disdain they have for Republicans on the national level. And meanwhile, they're completely ignoring their own constituents.
Yeah, but Rob, the public benefits charge doesn't discriminate. It's hitting Democrats too. So, where is? I mean, I understand that like hundreds of people, 600 people or so testified or had their voices heard. Where is the pressure for Democrats to feel, at least to add this as a budget line item, right? I mean, is there any compromise?
You would think so. You would think that they would take action based on the number of people that are involved and people that are upset about it. But so far, they haven't shown any signs of being concerned. And this is the big problem for our state, Tom. More than anything, and I think I've said this to you before, we have to overcome the fact that the Democrats, they're fearless. They really do not fear the voters. They do not fear Republicans in the legislature and in the state party from and their ability to be able to put these issues in front of voters. It's incredibly frustrating to me. I am very prolific. I'm on the radio with you. I'm putting out press releases. I'm on TV. I'm doing everything all under the sun trying to get the message out. And even my own district, where I feel like I do a pretty good job, at least in the 4 corners of where I represent. I still have people write me nearly every day saying, "What's going on with this public benefits chart?" I'm like, are you living under a rock? Unless people know what's going on and put pressure on the politicians, nothing's going to change. And the Democrats, I think they're just fearless at this point, and that we've got to reach a critical, balance where, they actually are afraid of people and start to do something.
Yeah, no kidding. We had a caller call up and ask. They said that they knew somebody who testified in person, and that nobody testified as of 5 p.m. Is that true?
Oh, I'm sorry. You were asking me.
Was there no public comment till 5 p.m.? Were people sitting there waiting to speak?
That is the report. And frankly, I was in a committee meeting debating and voting on both. Two of them actually. I spoke for 5 hours straight right through that whole thing. Oof. So I missed it. But that does happen. And in fact, Tom, if you give me a second, I want to tell you about the process up here.
Yeah,
the
please.
Democrats completely and utterly ignore any legitimacy of the process. They purposely do things like this. They'll put 100 bills on one public hearing agenda, so 1,000 people will sign up, and then they stack the list with the people they want to talk to for the first several hours.
Right.
And then everybody else, starts to fall off, and then it gets to be midnight, and 5, 6, 7, 800 people don't get to testify because they rigged the game against them. And then when it comes to actually vote on these bills, what they do is they take somebody like me. I'm the only Republican senator on the labor and housing committees, and there's terrible policy going through there to destroy our industry and our economy and labor and on our housing marketplace in the other committee. And they put 35 bills on one agenda, 25 on the other, put them on the schedule at the same time, knowing that I want to talk about these bills. And then they stack it so bad that you couldn't possibly give due diligence to all of them. I mean, as it was, I was here till 1 a.m. last night, and I had spoke for several hours on a number of the bills. But you need 20 of me to do it the right way.
All right. So tell me procedurally, Rob, then, Bob Duff, when he stood up and said it's mean he was addressing an amendment, maybe it was your amendment, but when he said it was mean to not let boys play against girls in sports. That was the bigger special ed bill, I think. When does he have to address, why was he compelled to address that amendment, and when does he have to during the proceedings?
Right. Well, the amendment was being brought out by the minority, so several of us Republicans got up and spoke in favor of the amendment. And during my speech, I was actually called out by the president of the Senate, Martin Looney, for, in his words, violating the rule that is in our joint rules of the legislature that you're not supposed to ascribe a motive to why people are voting a certain way. And I was just simply talking about how I thought this was a political bill that funds all of these, pet projects from Democrats. And instead, they're risking funding by violating the governor or the president's executive order on men and women's sports. And that's why we should be addressing something that actually is concrete. And then later on, I think that's when Bob said, we were being mean. So it's perfectly okay for him to ascribe motive, apparently, but it wasn't okay for me to point out they're being political.
That is such a great point. Because, mean is really a subjective word. It really has no place in factual debate whatsoever. Meanie. We're talking to State Senator Rob Sampson. Call us at 860-5229-842. We can take your calls. Let's see what Fred in Middletown is. I don't know if Fred's talking to me, you, just me, or both of us. Fred, what's going on? Hey, Fred. Of course, this is the same technology that I had working this well last week. All right, Fred, you stay there. You stay there, Fred. I'm going to grab you right over here, Fred. Come on over here. Fred Middletown. Hey, Fred.
Hey. So I got some broken record here. What I hear is that the Democrats are, to use Dan Marassi's word, a leviathan. You can't really touch them. They cheat. They own the whole game. They're the house. So now that brings me back to this Themis Claridis thing. She's a regular on Benny Penn now. She's on every Friday morning. And I swear he's having her on just to make sport of her. But she's no way going away. She reminds me of Susan Weissowitz when she was out of politics for a minute. She could barely stand it. But so there's nothing, what is there to even do about the Democrats? So is the Republicanship as tight as it can be? And then it's like, does Themis know something we don't? And to quote my poem, the clue is that neither the dog nor Ben Proto barked. Have any two Republicans ever discussed that Themis Claridis donated to Mayor Arampalam of Hartford? I mean, is it not significant because it's a one-off? Or I just don't see that. Again, David Letterman's bit, is this anything? And I'll hang up and take my answer on the air.
Thank you. Rob?
Hey, Fred, I mean, honestly, I don't know where the question comes from. I don't think Themis Claridis is relevant in any way, shape, or form. I think she is in large part to blame for the decline of the Connecticut Republican Party over the last decade or so when she served as the House Minority Leader. I mean, I hate to be that harsh on her. I mean, I think she tried to do some good things. But, you know, the one thing that Themis did that I think ruined us as far as the Connecticut Republican brand is for a long, long time, she was the number one purveyor of this idea that Connecticut Republicans were not going to touch social issues. You know, we can't do that. We can't be like those national Republicans. We got to be different. But, you know, you can count on Connecticut Republicans to always be fiscally responsible. Well, that's garbage because, you know, it was her and people like her and other Republicans that served during the same time frame that got us the huge decline. You know, when I first was elected, Tom, there were 37 Republicans in the House and 114 Democrats. Terrible. But over the course of that decade, when Malloy was governor, we worked our way back to near parity, 79 to 72. And then it all went away. And it all went away because folks like her came out and publicly said they wouldn't support Donald Trump for president. Right. You know, it divided our party in a way that I don't know that we're going to recover from anytime soon. And that still exists today. And I'm completely, really, really upset because just a few days ago, we had an opportunity to stand as a strong Republican Party and say we were going to honor the fiscal guardrails and we were going to do budgeting correctly and we were going to, you know, not go outside the framework like the Democrats wanted to. But half the House Republicans and a couple of Senate Republicans actually joined the Democrats to vote for their outside the budget solution because they were worried about the vote because it had to do with special ed funding, even though the rest of us did vote to increase special ed funding even more by using the proper framework. And again, until we get together and we can actually have a, you know, some solidarity in where we stand on principle, I don't know that the Connecticut Republican Party is a viable brand. I'm telling you all the time that I'm working on that in the Senate Republicans, and I know my leader is definitely on board. But it's going to take, you know, pressure from people like your listeners leaning on Republicans, frankly, to make sure that they stay true to their principles.
That is a starkly honest condemnation of the Connecticut Republicans. It's very interesting.
Well, Tom, I would say, look, I'm a Republican through and through. I am a part of my team. I want to see us succeed. I think we are moving in the right direction. I don't consider the Democrats to be a Leviathan that we can't beat. I think we're gaining on them every day. I'm as confident about the future as anybody you could possibly imagine. I watch what happened nationally. I know that the polling data says that we're right on all of the issues. But if we're gonna actually turn that into success and Republican majorities, then Republicans have to actually act like Republicans, and that we're actually in a war of ideas. Yeah. There's too many people in this party that are just going along and bumbling along. I work too hard, frankly, Tom. I work my butt off. I get up on every bill. I speak for hours at a time. I'm constantly in the press. I am, putting out social media. I'm attacking all the time the ideas of the Democrats that put us in a majority. And when I watch my other colleagues, you putting in less effort and just bumbling along, it's frustrating. There's only 11 Republican senators out of 36.
State Senator Rob Sampson, there are issues that you'd think are easy enough, are low-hanging fruit enough that really you could actually make a bipartisan issue out of. Really, if I look around now at American political culture, the biggest celebrity, the biggest politician in Connecticut right now, other than Chris Murphy, who is giving a tongue bath to every media organization who will have him in Washington, D.C. But the biggest one is Wanda. And she is a punchline. She is known. She went waltzing in to a hearing yesterday with the judge in her tracksuit with a big gulp. All of these people who've been rounded up in Bridgeport for tampering with the elections, they all have attitudes. They all have holier than that. They could care less, and it is like ridiculous. And still you can't get Connecticut Democrats to move and eliminate absentee drop boxes or making driver's licenses necessary. Like you can't. They won't budge on anything.
No, so far, no. I actually serve on the elections committee. I've been very outspoken about all of the ways that the Democrats have undermined elections, basically to make it easier for the Wandas of the world to do what they do effectively. And I've called them out on it. I mean, spoken for hour after hour. Again, put out all this press and everything else. And frankly, the problem there is that no one's talking about it. I'll give credit to Mike Cerulli of WTNH. He's the guy who put the story out yesterday. Really, I mean, chasing these people down on the street to challenge them, and I'm a patsy. It was great, and more power to him. But frankly, he's the only one. I mean, outside of him, I don't see any other statewide news media organization even talking about the election fraud in Bridgeport. So how many people know about it? And this is how politics works.
You're totally right. It's funny because I've been talking to, sometimes I have Steve Robinson of the Main Wire on, and I'm like just thinking, I work for a company that's prone to, like so many media companies these days, has to make responsible fiscal cuts, and so there are layoffs. If that were to happen to me, I would be reporting this stuff over to a bigger platform in a second. There's so much good stuff here. This is with Wanda, and who's the other guy there? The other counselor who's just fantastic. Who was the Patsy? I forgot his name.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I'm thinking of Pereira, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, hang on one second.
Castillo, is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Christine in Wellington. Christine, you're on with Rob Sampson. Good day.
Hi. Thanks for all you're doing. So I just got this thought here right now. Considering all that we have just seen by the Trump speech and all that it's as plain as day, I want to say a lot of people in the past in Connecticut probably had a lot of defeatist attitude. We're never going to get anywhere, Republican. I'm saying right now, carpe diem, seize the day, because the iron is hot. So anybody that's thinking right now to get involved with the Republican and what they want to do, this is a prime time right now. We may have said, it's never going to happen, but this is prime time to grab it now. So I hope people step up. For you, Rob, I'm too old. I'm on the back nine of my life, so I don't know what else I could do. But now is the time for people who thought it would never turn to get involved.
Here we go.
So I just wanted to say that. And
I couldn't agree more. That you're preaching to the choir. That's exactly what I'm saying, which is it is our time. And the more we put the pressure on, the more we are likely to flip this thing. Donald Trump's doing a lot of things, and he's doing a lot of great policy things. But the number one thing Donald Trump's doing that is so important is he is exposing the Democrats for just how unbelievably insane and deceitful they behave. And if we did the same thing in Connecticut, we would be able to put ourselves in the same boat. We'd be back at a majority in a very short time.
Here we go. His name is State Senator Rob Sampson. He is with us for the rest of the hour, taking your calls, 860-522-9842. My name is Tom Shattuck. This is WTIC News Talk 1080. Let's continue on with State Senator Rob Sampson. Hang on 1 second. You stay there. Let's go over here to Pete Northford. Hey, Pete, you're on with Rob Sampson.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. Rob, I'm calling you from Vinnie Candelora land down here in North Branford.
Wonderful.
Hey, it's been my contention for a while now that in order for us, and understand what I'm saying, this is not a shot at you because I follow what you do. I'm well aware of the work that you put in, okay? But in order for the state Republicans or our voters to get out of their malaise, if you will, is we need a bolt. We need a bolt of lightning somewhere, right, to come and to shake people up and to get their attention. And my contention is I don't think that's going to happen unless it comes from D.C., right? So my question to you is, what is the state party doing, all right, to get somebody somewhere down there in D.C. to turn a spotlight on to what's going on up here in the state, okay, to the corruption that's going on up here in the state, right? Because my feeling is, unfortunately, that until we get that thunderbolt, something big that happens, because we know we can't rely on the media, all right? So unless something like that happens, I'm afraid a lot of people out here feel like we're on an island, okay? We're kind of like spinning our wheels. We want to get some traction, but there really isn't anything for us to really put our teeth into.
Rob?
Hey, sorry, I didn't know if you wanted to jump in there quick, Tom. But yeah, I completely agree that we need a bolt of lightning. There's no question about that. We need a strong leader that will reignite the fire of the Democratic base, or the Republican base, and something that would allow Republican elected officials across the state to gather around and support. I don't know if that comes from D.C. And let me just be clear that I don't have anything to do with the state party. The chairman and I are not talking. I see the guy once or twice a year at a chicken dinner. We don't communicate. We're friendly when we see each other. I got mixed opinions about how that show is running as well. I worry about me, and I worry about the Senate Republican caucus and trying to get us to be a cohesive unit, because I think because we're the highest elected Republicans in the state, and granted there's only 11 of us, I think we have the opportunity to kind of set the tone for what Republicans stand for and are doing in Connecticut. And, it's not perfect. We got a long way to go, but I think we're in a better position than when we have been in a long, long time. And I stand by what I've been saying all along, which is that the Trump effect is making Democrat heads pop off. It is making people that never paid attention to politics actually pay attention for once. And so we have an opportunity to grab the hearts and minds and attention of these folks. It's just the biggest obstacle we have is getting our points of view into the media. As we were just talking about the election stuff, if we had every news network putting out the same news that Mike Cerulli was putting out on TNH, we'd have the whole state clamoring for something to be done about this. But because it's only in various pockets, and the Democrats still control 2/3 of the geography in the state, as well as all the highest offices, it's really hard to break through.
Yeah, and another thing, Pete, is that, say what you will about him, Ned Lamont has not poked the bear a la Janet Mills. And he's been working with cabinet secretaries to try to make sure that they've got some kind of a relationship going with the administration, which is to his credit, I guess. But there's something that you could do. If there's something that you could do, the way I would see forward, and I think Rob is right about this, that there's no local media who's going to help you here. That doesn't really exist. But if you were to get the national influencers to parachute in, the Scott Presslers, guys like Charlie Kirk and others along those level activist leaders, these people have huge audiences. That is, Charlie Kirk has a bigger audience than every single news outlet in Connecticut, plus CNN, plus NBC combined. So, and I know that to a lot of people, these are just loudmouth dunk on the libs guys, but these guys make a difference. Charlie Kirk with GOTV stuff and Scott Pressler did a lot of good work for this last election, and there's no doubt they can do it in a local level. Pressler's already looking at states, looking to branch out. So, how do you get their attention? I'm not quite sure. I mean, we're in a photo finish in Connecticut with Massachusetts and Maine unless you can make some like clean New England up, conference and activate it. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Well, we if you look at the strides that was made by New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, they made great strides in this last election. Okay, but we didn't. Okay, we went backwards in this last election. Now, Rob brought up something that's very, very sensitive to me, and that's state leadership. Okay, our state leadership is sorely lacking. All right, and I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody. All right, Ben Proto and the boys. Okay, they were anti-Trumpers from the start, and now I'm afraid that we are behind the eight ball as a result of that. For us to look for help, okay, from D.C., we're really going to have to go some, all right, because they all missed the boat. They could not read the tea leaves that were the size of basketballs, and now the rest of us here are suffering as a result. So we could talk about, the state party here forever, but it's lacking. It doesn't have any money, and they can't figure out why they don't have any money, right? Because there's no message, and that's the next question. What's the message? What are we trying to get out to people? If you talk to 10 Republicans here from the state of Connecticut and ask them what the national message was, they'll tell you it's MAGA, right? But if you ask them what's the state message, what's the message that the Republican Party is trying to get out to you, no one can tell them that. Okay, there's nothing concise. There's nothing that we could. There's no phrase. There's nothing that we could point to these people to say, hey, look, rally around this idea. Okay, our messaging is really lacking. And I think that's somewhere else that we really need to look at if we want to rally some people.
So, Pete, why don't we workshop this in our own little way right now? What is the biggest grief? Why not live in Connecticut if you're a hardworking American? Why not?
Why not living? Well, if you can't afford it, for one thing, right?
Yep.
I mean, my feeling is we have an absolute golden opportunity here handed to us on a silver platter, especially after we saw, the antics of the Democrats a couple of days ago, okay, during the speech.
Yes.
All right?
Oh, yes.
And if we want to go with an idea, let's just go with DOGE, not use DOGE, but the whole idea of big government versus small government, because that's what it's boiling down to, right? The idea of a big, bloated bureaucracy, ineffective government to something that's smaller, that's leaner, that's not going to leave anybody behind, okay, but that's going to be more efficient. And I think that's something that we could all get behind, okay? Even the moderate Democrats, okay, who can argue with that? But I don't hear that kind of thing coming out from the state.
Can that permeate the abortion firewall, do you think?
Well, that's another discussion for another time, I think. Yeah. I think we may need to start taking a look at our position on abortion. And, that's our Achilles heel, is it not?
Yeah, I certainly think it is.
I don't think so. I just want to jump in and say I don't think that's accurate. And again, I mean, on one hand, we're talking about how we need to have a strong, principled set of ideas and a brand to rally around. And the next minute, we're going ahead and abandoning things that have been key ingredients in the Republican platform forever. I don't think that's the answer. What we're up against, in my view, is the fact that Democrats have the media we already talked about, but they also have incumbency. They control all the constitutional offices. This is a lot to overcome. The fact of the matter is that, if there's nobody in a specific Senate or a House representative district or a congressional district on a bigger scale giving the alternative message, and that's the case, it's very hard to convince hearts and minds. People are very skeptical of government in general. I mean, I think they'd give the approval rating of the state of Connecticut, 10% or something like that. But then when you turn around and start asking people about their own state rep or their own state senator, and it's a whole different story. They're a nice guy. They come to the, Little League game, et cetera. And that's what we're up against. And Republicans, look, we are completely behind the eight ball. Each one of us individual candidates has to look out for ourselves. I got to run for re-election every 2 years. It's not an easy task to keep defending my own district. I try and help as many other candidates as I can. And that's what really needs to happen is we got to get a lot more people involved, a lot more people willing to. I think Trump being in office actually is going to lead to some of that, where more people say, I want to start running for state office. And I mean, it can't come soon enough. You can't become a majority if you don't run enough candidates to even be in a majority.
That's a great point.
That's where we.
Great point. Well, hold it there, Rob. One moment. We'll have our last segment with Rob Sampson coming up. Thanks for the call, Pete. I would say, as dishonorable as it is, when I pointed to changing position on abortion, Donald Trump did recalibrate. He did. He's on every side of abortion now. Nobody knows, and so a smokescreen. I know it's dishonorable and it's unprincipled, but any port in a storm. All right, guys, you have full lines for Rob Sampson. We're going to take a quick break. Here's the Real Madison, Connecticut Facebook page. Madison Youth and Family Services has a pride flag at the front door. As a local government institution, how's this okay? Who's in charge? And this kind of encroachment should be ideally breeding Republicans. Let's go to Dave in Brantford. You're on with Rob Sampson, State Senator Rob Sampson.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Rob. On the Wanda Jeter Pataki story, I think the people legally in charge of dealing with that would be Stephanie Thompson, Secretary of State, Billy Tong, Attorney General, and the SEEC, the State Election Enforcement Commission, have literally done less than nothing to stop this from getting worse. A problem that started in 2019, and they did bleep, and then he did it even worse in 2023. And this is what we reap. That's my comment. Rob, I have a question. It seems like the Connecticut Tenants Union, which boiled up out of the Communist Party activism in New Haven and Hamden, and now it's getting to be all over the state. I get the feeling we're right on the edge of forcing landlords legally to deal with them when they negotiate rent increases. You don't have a legal deal with your tenant. You have to negotiate with the tenants union. And I think the state is darn near saying you have to, just like employers have to deal with a labor union. I think that's very dangerous. Do you see that too?
Yes, I do, Dave. I serve as a ranking Republican member on the Housing Committee, and I'll tell you that is already happening. I mean, there's no state legislation requiring it to, but these landlords are reacting to what's happening on the ground, and these tenants are organizing, and they are, forcing them into a corner to do things. What the legislature is doing is crazy. We had a hearing started 10 o'clock yesterday morning, ended at 12:30 in the morning. And one of the main bills on the agenda was one that effectively allows tenants to take control over a property. There's no more expiration date to a lease. Effectively, they're going to change the law to say that the tenant stays forever unless you can remove them based on the very few, very specific circumstances that the Connecticut Democrats will allow. I mean, it is a direct assault on property rights. It's an assault on private contracts. And, of course, they're doing everything that they stupid. They say on one hand, we're having a housing shortage, and on the other hand, they're whacking around the housing providers. I mean, how does that work out? How are you going to have more housing by telling people not to come here and offer it?
Exactly.
I'll end it on this. It's just cause eviction is the bill you're talking about. The things that would establish just cause, they're trying to make it illegal for the landlords to buy, sell, and trade things such as the criminal records of their tenants, or the financial pay history of the tenants paying, or even the personal tenancy records. Every landlord has tenants. They give 1 to 5 stars, which is obvious everywhere in the world. Restaurants, books, movies, 1 to 5 stars.
Discriminatory, according to the Democrats.
If they give you a 1-star rating, the politics is such that they consider that you're stealing the tenant's civil rights. How dare you rate that tenant as a 1-star? I'll end it on that.
Thanks, Dave.
Letting me in.
See you Monday. Appreciate it, Dave. Thank you so much. We're talking to State Senator Rob Sampson. Rob Sampson, hang on one second. And we go. Hold on. Carmelia, you're on with Rob Sampson. Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
I'd like to talk about our voting system here in Connecticut. About 2 years ago, in the 80th district of our town, so somebody lost the election. The Republican lost the election by 1 vote, and it was a recount. And Democrats refused to verify the, I think it's the late votes that came in by mail, or the mail, they hadn't counted them. Mm-hmm. Then they counted them, and that's when he lost by 1 vote, but they wouldn't verify the names that were on those votes that were counted. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so Carmelia, thank you so much for the call, and I presume you're a constituent of mine because you're talking about the 81st state rep district, which is in the center of Southington, which is within my Senate district, and you're talking about the race between my good friend Toni Morrison, who I supported as the Republican candidate, and Chris Poulos, who was ultimately elected by 1 vote. And yes, it was a very close election. It was decided by 8 votes, and then we had a recount. And there were a lot of crazy things that happened during that recount. I was there, had a front row seat. They discovered that the margin was only 1 vote, and then we were called an hour later to say that they found 6 ballots in an envelope, but they were 3 and 3. So don't worry about it. Okay. And by rights, we were supposed to have to go back and do the whole thing over again. Look, all of these problems, including that, are a result of the policies passed by the Democrats starting in around 2012 or so, when they started to go with this whole mail-in voting and early voting and massive expansions. And they're doing all of these expansions while Republicans, including me, screaming from the rooftops, you can't do this without also increasing the security aspect of the thing. And they just blow it off, and they know what's happening. And I'm hopeful that, these folks down in Bridgeport, I don't know who's paying for their lawyers.
Well, actually, Rob, I'm glad you mentioned that, because maybe that's how you get the feds down here, through Bridgeport.
I got to believe they are. They are, and I'm hoping these people speak up. But then I wonder who's actually paying for their legal counsel, because I doubt they're paying it for themselves.
No. Although looking at the one of the lawyers there, I wouldn't be surprised. Brian in Willington, you're on with State Senator Rob Sampson.
Great. Thank you for taking my call. Hi, Senator. I think your Republican Party needs a very good leader, and you need to look to Aaron Stewart and the good job that she's done in New Britain. And, Tom, you got to bring her on your show and let people call in and talk to her and offer the same to Ned Lamont, because he won't do it.
Brian,
what do you think of that,
I think
Senator?
Aaron Stewart might have been the very first guest I had. Go ahead, Rob Sampson.
Yeah, I honestly, I know Aaron very well, and again, I don't want to get into who the proper candidate for governor is at this point, because in my view, there's going to be a lot more candidates. You go back to the last election, and you will discover there was probably 8 or 10 Republican candidates, and it's way too early. I mean, the fact of the matter is, there's probably going to be people entering the race right after the legislative session ends, and Erin is in, frankly, the other wing of the Republican Party for me. I know her. I respect her. I don't want to say anything negative about her, but I believe
Sorry.
conservative is going to beat her in a primary.
Well, there we go. State Senator Brian, we'll call back tomorrow, next week when we have Rob on again. State Senator Rob Sampson, thanks so much. Let's do it again next week, okay?
Totally my pleasure, Tom. Thanks.
Here we go. Thank you so much. There we go, guys. Let's do it all again. I tell you, that is, it gets up and running, and that is some action-packed radio, which I'm all for. Plus, it's a good education for me and you and all of us. And Rob, for all of us, let's keep on doing it. Best audience in talk radio, WTIC. See you tomorrow. Oh, no, see you Monday.